Vancouver has been labeled, rightly or wrongly, a no-fun city. It's also described as a lonely place where it can be hard to make friends. But what about friends you already had that you drifted away from? A new study says rekindling old friendships can be just as scary as making new ones. Psychologists from SFU and the University of Sussex teamed up to study how almost 2,500 people feel about reconnecting with friends and the barriers they face. For more on the findings, we're joined by the study co-author, Lara Aknin. Thank you for joining us. First of all, how many of the study participants had lost touch with someone they still care about?
Well, thank you for having me. And the short answer is the overwhelming majority. So in one of our early studies, we asked people to let us know if they've lost touch with someone they care about, and over 90% of people said they had.
Wow. And how did they feel about reconnecting when they did?
Well, despite the fact that this is a pretty common occurrence, we were surprised to see that the majority of people were neutral about the idea of reaching out to an old friend in general, and pretty aversive or negative about the experience of doing so now.
Why do you think that is? What fears did they express?
People expressed a range of fears. Probably the top one was that people thought it would be awkward and uncomfortable to reach out after all this time, and people worried that they would be an imposition or a bother to their old friends. At the bottom of the list, though, were people's constraints or worries about their own time. And so it didn't seem that people were so worried about the time they might lose or the burden they might express or experience, but they were more concerned about being an imposition in their old friend's life.
Did the pandemic play any role in some of the answers you received, do you think?
Well, it's hard to know because our data have been collected over the past 2 years, and so we don't have pre-COVID data to know how many people lost friends before or report old friends before versus after. But I think it's probably likely that's the case. Other data from other data sets has shown that people kind of pruned their friendships and their social circles during COVID. And so I suspect there are many people who have lost touch with people they care about as a result of the pandemic.
Did you find any differences based along gender or sexual orientation lines?
You know, we didn't look at that question in particular, but we did find, to our surprise, that in general, people were really averse to this idea of reaching out to old friends. In fact, in one study, we even asked them how comfortable they would be engaging in a range of everyday activities, from reaching out to an old friend to sparking up conversation with a stranger to booking an appointment with their dentist to eating an ice cream sandwich and picking up garbage. And reaching out to an old friend was rated equivalently to picking up garbage and talking to a stranger. And so people were surprisingly reluctant. That was probably one of our most shocking results.
And surprisingly honest. Yes. Lastly, we appreciate your time. Based on your findings, do you have any advice for people who perhaps are trying to reconnect with friends or make new ones?
Yes. So the final study in the paper, I won't go into it in much detail, but we found some really significant effects or some helpful input from practicing reaching out. So by that, I mean people who spent a few minutes kind of reaching out to current friends and family were much more likely to take this leap to hit send when we asked them and gave them the opportunity to reach out to an old friend. And so it seems like there's some benefit to kind of this warm-up experience, this warm-up or practice.
Yeah. It's like going back to the gym, but with friends. Lara Aknin, professor of social psychology at SFU, we appreciate your time and your insight. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.